Hey everybody, my name is Nancy, and today I'm going to be guiding you through a yin sequence that will help us to move into a heart and a mindset of gratitude. So the specific energy lines that we'll be targeting today will be the kidney and the liver meridians. However, practicing gratitude on a consistent basis is really nourishing for all of your meridians throughout the body. So hopefully today will just feel really supportive and help you get into a good mindset as you go out to face the rest of your day, your week, and into your life. So just a couple of notes. For our practice, you will need some props. If you can grab something around the house. If you don't have yoga specific props, that's okay. You don't even necessarily need a yoga mat for today's practice since it's pretty low to the ground. We don't do too much dynamic movement. So just a clear space. And then if you have something similar to yoga blocks, which you can see right behind me, that can offer some firm support beneath you here and there, that'd be a good option to have. And then if you have a large pillow or a yoga bolster that you can use, I would grab that as well. Okay, so our first pose is going to be butterfly pose. And today, if you're comfortable, we're gonna start seated in butterfly. I'm gonna have you move into a little bit of a toe stretch in our butterfly. So I'll face you to start so you can see. You may want to support the outer knees with blocks or whatever you have around. And we're going to begin to interlace the toes. So you'll take the toes and just kind of thread them together like you would your shoelaces, or kind of like a little puzzle that fits together perfectly here. And with that said, you are human, so it's probably not going to be totally perfect. Maybe one or two toes connect, and that's okay. You can also use a strap, wrap it around the feet to help the toes stay in place. But if you're able to just let the feet relax, that works too. So we'll start in this position here. And just allow yourself to find a comfortable seat as you sit upright. If you feel like you're kind of rolling toward the space behind you, it might be helpful to sit just to the edge of a blanket. And that'll help to kind of tilt your pelvis forward so that it's a little easier to sit up tall. Whatever works for you. Once you find a tall seat, go ahead and soften your gaze forward. Maybe close your eyes down if that's comfortable. And just begin by tuning into what's happening beneath the surface in your body, in your mind, your heart. Maybe taking a moment to pause and check in to see how you're doing in a really real and honest way for the first time all day long. And then begin to add a little more emphasis into the breath. So expanding the inhale and the exhale out another second longer. Just kind of holding on to the in and the out breath as long as you can. Savoring this ability that we have to breathe. Working lungs. The ability to physically take in the present moment as we breathe in the air around us. And also our ability to settle into the present as we exhale and feel the body relax. So the thing with gratitude is that it draws us into the present moment. We're not searching for what more we could have in the future or what we lacked in the past. And we begin to settle into the present moment and we just start to open our eyes to the gifts that are all around us. Whether it's the earth beneath you holding you up, the support that you have in your life through relationships, your faith, your yoga practice. Whatever it is that you are grateful for here in this moment is enough. Taking just a few more breaths here. If you have a personal intention you'd like to draw into your practice today, begin to set that here. It could be a simple mantra based on our theme today, inhaling, I am. Exhaling, thankful. And in each breath, you find something you can be thankful for in the present moment. Whether it's here with you in the pose or out and in your life. There is always something that we can look to and be grateful for. Your next breath, just flicker your eyes gently open. And we'll begin to guide the outer knees in toward one another. So just really gently, as you do that, you'll unleash the toes and just kind of stretch them out, wiggle them out in any way that feels good. Our toes are often scrunched up in shoes as we go through our days. So taking the time to stretch them out like that can be intense, but it can also be very nourishing for the connective tissues through the feet. So our next pose is actually butterfly pose. So we'll continue in this position, but I would encourage you to take your feet a little further forward than you're used to, if that feels okay. So a nice long diamond shape. And we'll begin to move into a forward bend here. But just keep in mind, your forward bend doesn't have to be super deep, especially right away. Give yourself permission to take your time. Maybe holding onto the shins for a couple of breaths as you breathe and focus on lengthening the spine to start. And then over the course of time, when it feels right for you, you can begin to melt your way forward. Maybe just gently leaning forward, starting to let the back kind of round so your spine gets an additional stretch. Letting the head hang. And this is where your props can come in handy if you have a yoga bolster or a pillow or additional blocks. You can use those in your lap just as a place to land. The yin practice is a lot different than how we practice a flow yang practice. So there's 3 main principles that you want to cultivate in each pose and really throughout the class. And the first principle is finding an edge. So finding a place where you start to feel sensation in the pose. It doesn't have to be the deepest sensation. It's probably just going to be that initial little surge that you feel. And once we feel that, we pause and we get curious about it. And the second principle is where we begin to find stillness. So once you find that edge of sensation, you start to experience the pose physically, but also maybe it's a mental or emotional sensation that asks you to take a moment to feel. And it's in that sensation that we choose to remain still. So we let go, we open our hands and release our grip on control. And we begin to still the body, steady the breath, and we still the mind, maybe to focus on the sensation, maybe to come back to an intention. And the final principle of practicing yin is holding for a period of time. So once we found stillness, we found sensation, then we give ourselves plenty of time to settle in. And as you do so, you may begin to notice that you could go deeper, and you're always welcome to explore more depth, but just know that that doesn't necessarily advance you in the practice. The way we advance in yin is by holding for longer. So don't ever feel like you have to change anything or go anywhere specific. Just stay present with your sensations, changing up what needs changing and leaving what you can surrender along the way. And let's just take one more deep, long breath here. When you feel ready, as slowly as you entered the pose, we'll begin to make our way out of it. So nice and easy as you come up, just aligning the head above the heart. Take a couple of breaths, just feeling that initial release. Now when you feel ready, you can remove any props from your lap, gently guiding the outer knees up off of the blocks, inner knees in. Maybe give yourself a big hug here. And then from here, we'll begin to move into our next position. So we'll start in a tabletop pose. If you have sensitive knees, I'd keep a blanket beneath you just so that you have a little cushion. And then once you come into tabletop, you're going to begin to curl under all 10 toes, even the pinky toes, especially as you begin to press your weight back, sitting hips back toward the heels. Hands can walk back with you. And then you just pause when you feel like you've found enough. This pose often doesn't require too much, as our toes don't often get much attention when we do our workouts. So give yourself some grace. If you need to stay low, stay low. If you feel okay sitting up on the heels, lengthening the spine, adding more weight down into the toe joints and strengthening the arches, feel free to come up. So once you find a place where you've started to feel the pose, instead of feeling like you have to change or make it more or less intense, if you can sit with it and you can maintain those qualities of the yin practice, allow yourself to find that stillness. And just taking a few breaths here. Relaxing what you can, letting the shoulders melt down away from the ears, the muscles through the face to soften. The meridian lines that we're targeting today that are most drastically impacted by practicing gratitude both start in the feet. So your kidney and your liver meridians start in the feet. So we feel a lot here because our feet are tight from physical wear, but we also feel a lot because there are a lot of energy pathways that begin or end in the feet. So as you start to feel the sensation, instead of focusing on the drama of the sensation, see if you can redirect your thoughts towards something positive. Extending out some gratitude for all the places that your feet take you, how your toes help you to balance, to find stability. Help you to walk around and explore. There's much to be grateful for here, and sometimes feeling sensation, we automatically go to the negative, but see if you can start to turn the negative to the positive by practicing gratitude. Just a couple more breaths here. From here, we'll gently begin to make our way forward. So coming back into your tabletop, you can pick up the toes and gently roll the ankles out a couple of times. Stretch out the toes. If it feels good, you can tap the feet on the mat. And for our next pose, it'll serve as a counter pose to what we just did. We're going to move into our tadpole, which is basically a wide-kneed child's pose. So again, if you have sensitive knees, I would take your blanket, placing it beneath the knees and shins. You could even take a blanket underneath the hips to alleviate any unnecessary tension. And then we'll begin to move into the pose. So we will be in this pose again, so you're always welcome to do the same thing both times, or maybe this time you start a little more supported, a little more uplifted. When you're ready, you can begin to come down, and if you have your head turned in one direction, I'll let you know when it's time to turn it the other way so your neck feels balanced. Especially if your chest is supported here, as you close your eyes down and you really start to pay attention, you might begin to feel that heart beating just beneath the surface of your chest. That internal rhythm is there to remind you that you are here. You're alive in this moment. So what in this moment can you be grateful for? As long as that heart is beating and the breath is moving, there is always something to be grateful for. You can switch your gaze over to the other side if it's turned in one direction. Your next breath will slowly come back to center. And from here, we're going to begin to move toward the belly. So if you're not comfortable being directly on the belly, that's okay. One great way to avoid putting too much pressure there is to use a blanket or a bolster, some kind of pillow underneath the pelvis and the front of the hips. So I'm going to show that option today. And once you get the hips settled down either to the floor or to your additional props, we'll begin to come up onto the forearms. So you'll begin to prop yourself up onto either forearm. You can keep the elbows just beneath the shoulders, about shoulder width apart, and you can kind of hold on to either elbow to measure that. Or you can take the elbows a little wider to lessen the intensity. Just make sure your elbows are far enough forward to where you don't feel like you're gonna fall down. So kind of building a little tripod that you can balance into. Letting the belly just drape toward the floor. Especially if your hips are elevated here, you'll feel a deeper stretch through the belly and through the chest as you kind of sink in. So the kidney and liver meridian lines, they travel up through the inner legs and then up through the front of the torso. So we're getting those lines a little TLC here as we stimulate them with each breath. And with this nice long held pressure through the front body. And you're always welcome to find some support for your head. Don't have to keep it lifted the whole time. Maybe a block under the forehead. If you feel like your head's been lowered all day long, like you've been looking at your phone, checking on your kids, you can always experiment with bringing your chin to a block and giving your cervical spine a little bit of extension instead. Just make sure there's never any pain. If there's pain, you just back out, find something that works for you. And again, just using the time that you have in these postures to be intentional. So directing your mind toward things to be grateful for. And it can be really simple, really surface level. It could be being grateful for the ability to practice yoga in this hour of your day. It can be gratitude for the props that you have to hold you up. Remind you that you are supported, that this is a safe space. And of course, your gratitude can always expand out toward anything that comes to mind. Just kind of allow your mind to do what it wants to do here, and whatever comes up, see if you can turn that thought or that distraction into a moment of gratitude, of thanksgiving. So again, if you're feeling the pose, then you're doing the pose. There's no need to change it. However, if you're craving a little bit of change, a little more depth, One way you can find that is by elevating your forearms, so bringing them up just a bit higher. You can also move into your seal pose, taking the hands wider and then pressing your elbows up off of the floor. But see if you can cultivate this same sense of heaviness and surrender wherever you decide to go. And just trusting your body to hold itself up here. Not getting so caught up in the aesthetics of the pose, what it looks like, which direction your heels are landing. Just allow yourself to release, to trust your breath to take you where you need to go. We've got about 1.5 minutes left here, but remember, you can always back out and come out of the pose when you need to. If you feel like you can stay here for about another minute longer, then stay. This is essentially you time, so you can fine-tune and adjust as needed. And then from here, we'll slowly begin to release the posture. So if you have props beneath your elbows, set those aside first. So you can plant your hands down and press your weight back. We'll go into a counter pose here, which is going to be our tadpole once more. So we've already been in this position. This time as you come into your tadpole, it might be a good idea to also have your blanket underneath you. Even if you don't have super sensitive knees, it will come in handy for our next pose. So I would take it out nice and wide so it's ready for you. We'll just start in tadpole. So knees wide, feet closest together, and then begin to walk yourself forward. You can let the head just kind of hang. You can change up how you're doing the pose this time or go back to what you did before. Most important thing you're doing here is breathing. So really lengthening those inhales and deepening the exhales. And the breath has a lot of physical benefits, including stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to rest and find relaxation and release. But the breath is also believed to be how the chi flows through our meridian system. So as we breathe deeply, we encourage that movement of energy. We encourage the removal of blockages and imbalance. And the breath brings us back into energetic equilibrium. Maybe you can even sense that taking place beneath the surface. So you're welcome to remain in this pose for the rest of the time here. If you'd like to deepen this pose, we'll come up just a bit so our hips can lift off of the heels momentarily, and then we'll take the feet out wider and begin to slide the knees out just about as far as they want to go, coming into our frog pose. And the hips can settle back or forward slightly. You just want to find a good amount of sensation, a good edge for you to land in. If you have a pillow or something similar, your bolster nearby, it's a good prop to have underneath your torso so you have a place to land. You can also just come down to the forearms on the floor. Really just allowing the inner legs to release toward the floor as the pelvis just hangs heavy. Not too much muscle activation through the toes, the legs, the spine. The only thing that's really moving and working here is your breath. So as I mentioned before, the energy lines travel up through the inner legs, and specifically tapping into our kidney energy, our kidney meridians here, which is our body's deepest energy reservoir. So a lot of the body's energy comes from the kidney lines. And we're born with a certain amount of kidney energy called prenatal Jing, which is a type of qi. And over time, throughout our lives, we nourish and kind of keep that supply high, or we can deplete ourselves a bit through activities that aren't helpful, such as being fearful, struggling to trust, and always wanting to control. Those things can deplete that energy and take it away, and you can't really replenish it. However, we're able to build up this postnatal Jing, as we go through our lives. One of the ways we can do that is by practicing gratitude. Of course, by practicing yoga and stimulating these lines. But gratitude has a really powerful effect as it works to help us rest and rejuvenate and repair. It kind of calms us and draws us back to what matters. So as you feel the deep sensations that I know are in this pose, I definitely feel them too here. Again, instead of getting caught up in the drama of the sensation and thinking, when will this be over? Begin to transition your mind to something you can be grateful for. Maybe there's some circumstance, some relationship, something in your life that's making you feel all the feels lately. Perhaps you can express some gratitude for the ability to be present with your feelings, to express them to others. Whatever it is for you, turn it into gratitude. Keep that breath flowing, about 4 more deep, full rounds of breath. And from here, we'll place the hands beneath us and slowly begin to make your way up. Probably feeling that pretty intensely, so do take your time as you come back to center. Knees together for a moment. And just sitting back, if you're comfortable, sitting back to the heels. And just allowing yourself a moment to feel the shift, feel the change, the release. Sometimes after we really go through something, we really feel something deeply, we forget to pause and notice the effect that it has over us in our lives. At this time of transition where we feel the effects, we acknowledge what's happened, is actually what helps us to move on and live fuller lives. From here, we're going to move to the long edge of the mat, so you can take your time to reset your props here. I'm going to have my blanket folded again to go beneath my hips. We'll take the legs out into a V position once you're ready. So your V is going to look different than mine. Might look different than it did last week in your body, and that's okay. So before we move into just a straightforward fold, we're actually going to move into 2 variations, well, 1 variation on either side. You have the option to choose. So option A is you can begin to come into your half saddle pose, which is kind of like a half hero, maybe rolling the calf out of the way. And you'll come onto a little deeper stretch in the inner thigh there, in the inner groin. And you can fold straight forward, or you can fold slightly over to that extended leg. Option B, if this is just not working for you, no problem. You can just come into a half butterfly, bringing the outer leg down to the floor. You'll still get some attention on the inner leg, just not as much downward pressure. So you decide where you'd like to go. And when you're ready, we're going to begin to find our fold. Now you can always adjust and go slightly towards center, over to the left, whatever works for you. The important thing here is that you're able to find a place that feels supportive, that you feel sensation, and you're able to be still. Letting go even of activation through the extended legs, toes, just let them kind of relax. The toes might drop slightly in or out. As long as you don't feel pain, allow that to happen. And from here, nice and slow, give yourself time to come back up. Gently leaning to release the bent leg. Take a moment in center just to kind of feel the difference and the subtle changes from right to left, left to right. When you're ready, we'll just go to the other side of this variation. So half butterfly or your half saddle, whatever works better for you. Right knee or the knee that's bent can still go out wide here. And then over the course of the next few breaths, begin to find your fold. Your back can round as much as it needs to, as you find a stretch through the back body. It's not going to harm anything as long as there's no pain. Allow yourself to go where it feels right for you. Noticing the energy through your face here, your jaw, the muscles that line your forehead that help you to express yourself. See if you can even soften into those areas. Noticing the overall impact of letting go of the little things. And we'll slowly come back up. Once again, gently releasing the leg that's bent. Straightening it out and just feeling the effects for a moment. And we'll keep the legs in this position and begin to move straight down the center with both legs straight. So you can reposition props accordingly. However you want to use them is just fine. Again, letting go of any activation through the legs as you just find your way forward into that first layer of sensation. And as you start to feel it, just allow yourself to lean into it. Sometimes when we feel discomfort, we want to push past it. And as long as there's no pain, we're going to benefit more from the pose physically, mentally, and even spiritually by staying, kind of embracing that discomfort, that hardship in the pose. One thing I've learned in my life is that I've been the most grateful during and after times of difficulty. So, experiencing loss or just struggles in relationships and finances, as we notice life changing and having no control over it, it's in those moments that we begin to be grateful for what we have, for the people around us, the food in our bellies, the roofs over our heads. For the person that we've become, the strength that we have. It's usually when we feel discomfort, we have to stay in it, that we begin to really open our eyes to the fullness of life by practicing gratitude. From here, we'll slowly begin to make our way back up. Again, just taking that moment to feel the shift, the change, deeper awareness of how you're doing physically, mentally, emotionally. And If you have any props in front of you, go ahead and gently begin to set them to the side. We're going to help the knees up into a bent position here. Lean the hands back behind you like little kickstands, and then begin to just drop your knees side to side through some windshield wiper motions just to release. We'll move into our final posture before Shavasana. And for this posture, we're going to start on the left side. So you can just come onto that left hip and then begin to lower down onto your left forearm. It might be wise to have a couple of blocks nearby, some kind of prop behind you. Whatever it is that will work for you. And so for the first couple of moments, we're just kind of letting the outer hips settle and the side body sink toward the floor. So we move into cat pulling its tail. So you can stay right here for as long as you need to. If you're ready, you can begin to take the top leg and extend it forward toward the space in front of your torso. I like to place a block underneath my leg. You could use a pillow or a blanket as well. And just start to feel the release here through the top outer hip. You can deepen the pose by reaching for that bottom leg's foot with your top arm and scooting the knee back so that it's pointed toward the skinny edge of the mat. And that should intensify the stretch through the front of that bottom leg's hip flexor, the quad. Not over analyzing, just kind of letting yourself land here in this funky shape. And then to let the body go even deeper than this, you can begin to lean back slightly and then extend that forearm that was just down on the ground out so the arm is flat. And begin to open your chest up toward the ceiling, coming into more of a supine twist here. You can maintain your connection with the foot through that top arm if you wish, or you can let it go. Gaze can go straight up over to that top arm side, or maybe just keep it kind of over toward that grounded arm. Whatever feels a little more supportive through your neck and your shoulders. We've got about a minute here remaining if that works for you. Of course, you're welcome to release any element or all of the pose at any time that feels right.
And from here, you can start by releasing that bottom leg's foot if it's bound. Gaze comes back to center. If you're on your back, you can slowly just roll flat onto your spine. If you're still upright, you can come to your back or come up to seated, whatever works better. And just give yourself a moment to be neutral. You can move through something dynamic here. You can stay nice and still. And we'll just go to the second side of this pose before we head to our final relaxation. So this time we'll come onto the outer right hip. Make sure you've got your props set up where you'd like them to be. Right forearm will come down, and just kind of start by sinking the right side body into the earth. And giving yourself a few deep breaths here just to arrive onto this side body. The left side of our body is the yin side. So it's our feminine energy, our moon side. And the right side is our sun side, our yang side of the body. It's more masculine in nature. It's more energizing. So this might be the side of your body that takes the most stress as you go through your day. And just observing what it is that you feel. You don't have to read into that too much. Top leg can begin to extend if you feel ready for that. And of course you can just stick with that, or if you want to add in that bottom leg as another element, feel free. But just acknowledge where this side needs to feel slightly different. Practicing a little acceptance is an important part of our journey to gratitude. Instead of forcing everything to be really uniform, really expected. See if you can allow for the unexpected to be a part of your journey today. Maybe even celebrating the little unexpected elements of your yoga practice, the things you didn't expect to feel in your body, being with all of it. Again, you can stay as you are, or if you want to move closer to the floor, you can begin to extend that right arm forward, letting the left shoulder head drop back behind you. And deciding what about this pose you want to keep, what you need to let go of or add in. But eventually finding a place that you can just be still, that you can hold. Just about one more minute here on this side, if that works for you. to make your way back into a neutral position, maybe onto your back or upright. Giving yourself a moment just to come back into balance, feel the effects. From here, we'll move into our final resting pose, our Shavasana. So you can come into whatever Shavasana position works for you. You could do legs up the wall, lie on your side, come flat onto your back, or anything in between. I like to get lots of support going here so I can deepen my relaxation. But feel free to do what works for you. Just making sure you can land into a place that you can really surrender into. And as you find that final position, allow yourself to take up some space here. Arms go wide, maybe palms up to deepen the relaxation through the shoulders. Releasing control over the breath. Allowing yourself these moments here to come full circle in your practice and to receive the space, the energy, everything you've been able to cultivate in your practice. begin to deepen your breath. Inviting gentle movement back into the body, stretching the fingers, wiggling out the toes. Maybe gently rolling the head side to side. And take the arms, stretch them overhead, giving yourself a big full body stretch here as you breathe in and sigh it out. And from here, we'll roll onto one side of the body, whichever side works better for you. Taking a moment to pause here in this pose, which represents fresh starts and new beginnings, our fetal pose. Observing here the shift that's taken place through all the layers of the self, the body, the mind, the spirit. Noticing the awareness, the sensations that's present. When you're ready, we'll press up to a comfortable seat. Whatever position works for you. Once you find your way up, eyes remain heavy. And we'll just soften the gaze forward, begin to curl the fingers in and begin to tap directly onto your sternum, just above the breastbone, stimulating the thymus gland, which is sort of our body's immune system surveillance gland. It helps to keep the body aware when there are foreign objects and pathogens. But it also is known to stimulate and restore balance in the energy body. So as we tap here, we begin to encourage the thymus gland to do its good work. And we'll eventually come into our trust mudra, interlacing all but the thumbs, resting the palms to the chest, elbows hang heavy. And we'll do one Om here. So we'll start with just a normal breath in and out. And then we'll inhale for Om. We'll draw the palms together at heart center here, bowing the head once more in gratitude for your healthy body, for your ability to practice yoga today. It's here at our hearts that we reconnect with the inner rhythms. The heart is beating, the breath is moving. These rhythms serve as a sweet reminder that you are here. You're alive, you're present, and that means you're very truly blessed. Namaste.